administrator has also served as our human resources department. She does all of that along with all of her other duties. That's been a little bit of a, what do we wanna call that, a gate. So depending on her workload and level, whether we've been able to operate as we would. So I think it's something that this board needs to wrestle with a little bit. What does this future organization look like? You know, Eric's group and the expanded responsibilities they've taken on, I don't think really fit well into the, what is your official title today? Environmental and,
Well, it's planning and zoning administrator, but it covers building permitting and inspections, county sanitary and duties, floodplain administrator. And then from time to time, I get called in to assist like other departments of purchase of land or disposition of land, taking things to the city of Muscatine, meeting with other cities. You know, whether it be, we're looking at building to purchase or piece of land, or how we subdivide this and meet their requirements. And that's kind of an administrative function that doesn't fit under planning and zoning, or our local building, you know, working with the other communities, kind of determining whether another agency needs to come talk directly to the board, gatekeeping some of the things that Nancy's done, over the years, working with the county attorney on these land things. So.
To me, reallocating those responsibilities to Eric and that new HR position makes sense, but to me, I'm not sure they make sense until Nancy's ready to retire. And if they do, if all this makes sense, then I think we have to reevaluate Nancy's position and wage with the less responsibilities that were taken to her and given to an HR person and given to the planning and zoning department. So I don't think all of them should happen at the same time. We gotta figure out which one you wanna do.
Well, my only observation here is that we don't know what Nancy's plan are, her desire or willingness or ability to continue.
She might be with us 5 more years.
She might.
I don't think she's ready to retire.
I thought she'd said a little while ago 2 years was her plan, but again, that's always subject to change. You don't always have the luxury of, you know, a clean, you substitute one as soon as the other goes. And there's definitely, I think, a lot to absorb in the HR position. I see we've got our two folks here that we're going to be speaking with, but that's my only observation. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Well, another point here, it'd be one thing if we're dealing with 20, 30 employees. We're dealing with hundreds of employees that, I'll be real honest with you, over the years, myself sitting on the board, I always felt that there should have been an actual HR person, and not put that workload on Nancy's back. I think this workload has been incredibly excessive for one person, and I personally think this is long overdue to spread this workload out. And as far as waiting until a person retires, the increment of time it'll take to bring a new staff person in and have that individual at a high level, it takes some time. So I understand your point, but as in Eric's shifting of responsibilities, you know, that's pretty fluid as well, of how this has gone. So it's not that it's a constant here. What we're talking about here is the fluid of business that has transpired, and it's gonna just take a little bit more to get it done.
So if now's the time, which I'm not saying it isn't, and you hire a new HR person and you shift responsibilities to Eric, I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with that and not reevaluating the administrator position and her responsibilities and salary. If we want to move, for me, if we want to move forward with the HR person and Eric's new roles, we have to reconsider that. We don't give that person another 5% raise. We
I think
reevaluate
that's a
that.
given in my mind. We have to resolve that. And yet I think the other thing, Danny, I think to clarify too, is if you thought that, cause like if you look at our next year's budget, we talk about process, so we have approved some positions in next year's budget. But part of the process is they go through an evaluation and a job description. That doesn't necessarily mean we fill that position. So that's yet another process that comes back before the board. So they won't hire until we go through that process.
So, go ahead,
I
guys.
guess the questions I had, how long ago was the HR first person,
Well, so
or
we're.
when was that
we're-
approved? As like Danny said, before we were on the board, but.
So
Man,
we're just-
nobody,
say
I don't
it's
know
been
about you,
4 or
but
5
nobody told
years.
me about it until, I think you told me about it
Yeah.
3 weeks
I
ago.
wanna say it's been 4 or 5 years maybe, is that?
So we're discussing we're discussing planning and zoning now,
Right.
and really nothing else. And so, you know, this, quite frankly, Eric brought this up a couple of weeks ago for us to talk about. I think Nancy talked, this was her recommendation. If we're uncomfortable with the recommendation, I think we can take it under advisement and table this action today, and move forward.
I would be okay with a motion on this action item with the contingency of, that we will re-evaluate the administrator's salary before July 1st, before the wages kicked in. I would make the motion to,
I don't think you can combine those two, but we
Okay.
can certainly decide that we're gonna do that. You know, we don't need a motion to do that.
Yeah, this stands alone, separate.
It's an up or
This
down,
is
yeah.
a discussion item, this is whether we
But
take,
I'm
do
comfortable.
this
with that.
action or not, and then we have other decisions.
Yeah.
We're in an interview process on the HR position, and we would talk about that, we'll have a discussion about what we're gonna do with that, the entire organization, salaries, all of that.
So, does anybody have a fundamental problem with what Danny said? It sounds like you say it's a given. I'm comfortable with reevaluating that. Is that something we can commit to? Does that help you decide?
I'm okay with that. I'm just scared if it isn't part of the understanding and if we made a motion that.
Well, unfortunately,
But can we add that to the agenda can we add that to the agenda next week? That we can that we can have something put in place, because I'm scared it'll fall through the cracks and then it won't get resolved.
I'm trying to think if that requires, I'd wanna talk to Jim about it, because that might require, Nancy might be able to request a closed session on that, because it would involve some level of evaluation. So, let's talk with Jim about that, but let's have that discussion,
Okay.
alright? Okay, so is there a motion on the first, the regrade of to approve a revised class specification and grade assignment, for county development director? Do we have a motion on that? 11A1.
Have we seen, the revised, scope of duties, all of that? I don't know.
I think it was in the packet.
Was it in there? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
There's a revised
I
draft.
don't remember.
I do have one. It's quite lengthy.
It's,
Yeah, but it is
oh,
here.
not this one.
I think the maybe seeking direction or clarification was a portion as far as general supervision, or general services, not just project management. Is that, I guess I seek that clarification as well. What are the
Yeah,
expectations?
I think that was the question, because I didn't think it was clear to me that it would include this general. Okay, so it did add responsible for oversight of general,
Yeah.
so I think that clarifies.
Is that a motion?
I'll move the approval.
Okay, Jeff has moved approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Scott has seconded. Any further discussion on the revising the class specification and grade assignment, changing the name from planning and zoning administrator to county development director? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
I think I heard Kurt, you were aye? Okay, so 4 ayes, 1 nay. Okay, item number 11A2 is approved new class specifications and grade assignments for building, zoning, and environmental inspector 1 and 2 positions.
So this creates 2 new positions, or creates 2 classifications, really doesn't create any positions, it's just job descriptions we're creating and the associated grades.
Can we have Eric speaking with regards to this, please?
Yeah, Eric, would you talk about that?
Right, yep, so I think I mentioned this when I brought it up at budget time. I have 2 inspectors, we would still be, doing business with 2 inspectors. However, since we started the project management portion, project management's been kind of shared between myself and one of my inspectors who has shown, a lot of, experience and talents in those areas. Is, in my mind, a very valuable tool to have, but that is nowhere in the normal building, inspector job description. I strongly recommend that we consider using this person in that role, and that we restructure this inspector position, which Nancy has done, accordingly, because it's really too much for one person working full-time to stay on top of the projects. It's worked very well, where if a contractor calls with an issue on one of our large projects and needs us there fairly quickly to keep moving, one of us can respond. The team approach on it from my office has worked very, very well. This employee comes from a project management background. Quite frankly, I'm looking at it also as kind of a succession planning, evaluating the future through my office. You know, I'm down to less than 10 years towards my retirement, and I think succession planning is one of the things that we need to do better countywide, in preparing our people for the future. Really, for now, it's not a necessity. And this person serves that role very well, and this would reflect those extra duties and responsibilities.
So this is adding, basically separating the grades, so we have kind of a expanded roles and.
It's like an inspector and a senior inspector, level that assists with project management, serves in my absence on things like that, reporting to the board on these capital projects.
All right, do we have,
I'll make the motion.
all right, Jeff has moved, approval of item 11A2. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Scott has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving new class specifications and grade assignments for building, zoning, and environmental inspector 1 and 2 positions, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item 11A3 is approve the placement of a current building, zoning, and environmental inspector 2, grade 14, step 4, into a building, zoning, environmental inspector 1 position, grade 15, step 4, effective February 22nd, 2025. And this is just moving that individual you mentioned into the new position we just authorized.
Current step,
Yep.
into the different grade.
And, yeah, I didn't look at the. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Jeff has moved.
That's second.
Scott has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 11B is discussion of possible action authorizing the chair to execute a fiscal year 24-25 methamphetamine drug hotspots grant program agreement in the amount of $9,000.
So this is just an annual agreement that the drug task force guys get some overtime covered when they work methamphetamine cases.
Cool.
Did we get that, document switched around, cause I know they were
We
saying.
did, and you
did it
should
come
have
to you,
to
Nathan? So this is
electronic
authorizing Nathan to sign
sign it,
that,
yes.
and you made a motion, so
I moved it.
And I'll approve. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else from the administration office? Okay, item 12 is receive information from county employees. Anybody dying to talk to us? All right,
Just give me your feedback on some of that proposed legislation, I'll try to keep an eye on it.
it sucks.
Well, yeah, some of it does. I know the county zoning officials, ISAC affiliate, we're kind of watching it. We don't wanna waste our, opposition stances on bills that don't have a lot of traction or come across as just, blanket oppositions. We're watching those and, but for the most part, all the county zoning officials that I've been in contact with are pretty opposed to some of that. But, if you have any feedback, then there's.
There are probably 3 or 4 study bills or pieces of legislation that I'm watching, and I'll make a list, cause I think this is something that we may, as a board, may want to talk about, whether we send an official letter to our legislative contingency and state our positions as a board and our reasoning for those positions. A couple of the things that they're, and I don't know what the, you know, whether they're gonna make it through the funnel, not make it through the funnel, any of that. But there are a couple, you know, there's a couple of zoning, there's some, where were the other, there's 2 or 3 that I have been watching that I have concerns with.
Some of them are
Where
property,
they-
or any of them on property tax. I know they're trying to.
Property tax, there's services, there are just a number of areas, I think we have some in GA that I'm watching that are a little bit concerning to me. And it's really to be, how are we gonna sustain with our limited budget ability, how are we gonna sustain services that they're calling for, that there's no real plan for? And I think we need to highlight those issues to them so that they can see that they're kinda gonna paint the Board of Supervisors into a pretty deep corner here pretty soon.
Yeah, cause we either gonna have to end up cutting services, or they're gonna have to take them over, the state's gonna.
100%. And I don't think they understand the scope of services that they would have to add to do that. I don't think they understand I think they believe, the state believes they have things covered and they don't really have them covered. There's a pretty significant shortfall, and counties have always picked that up. But it's, if you look at some of the code sections, you know, there's some clarification. I'll send them, I'll write something up and send it to everybody, what I'm thinking.
Okay, anyone from the public wishing to comment? Okay, just to let these two fine individuals know, we have a quick piece of business we have to go into a closed session for, or we will consider that. And then I think we'll be right with you after that. So, next on the agenda is a closed session pursuant to Code of Iowa, section 21.5C, to discuss.
Jim back, do we need to move this?
Brian, is this is all yours?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have Jim here, but I don't know what his schedule's like right now.
Okay. Well then.
I can cover it quick.
After this closed session will be 1 year or so.
Jim's covered it.
Yep. This should take just a couple minutes.